Good morning. As we're getting set up here, I'll use the time effectively. I'm Andrea Dietrich, and I led the Water for Health group, which had a $300,000 investment from ICTAS, and it's an interdisciplinary project. Over here, the last thing. And my colleagues, and it's, you'll see, here we are. We're from multi-departments. I'm from civil engineering. My colleague Brenda Davey is from human nutrition, health, and exercise. And Susan Duncan is from food science. And we have Joe Falkenkamp from biology. But we've worked together for these last 3 years. And Sue, Brenda, and I have probably been the sub-leadership team. So what we're doing is our goal is Water for Health, and much like a lot of the interdisciplinary research we've heard about this morning, our goal was to build a team that could address two main challenges in the 21st century. One is, how availability of safe drinking water in society, and a lot of the talks this morning have been directed towards that. But the other thing was to get into the social science, public health, and how do we influence humans to make healthy choices? How do we get them to value and drink water and maybe substitute it for, Coke and Pepsi? And so we're kind of on the Bloomberg team, if you think of us that way. And this is an overall diagram. We're combining science and engineering, but we've gotten into the health, behavior, social aspects. And this is key to getting people to adapt and change their behaviors. So what I'll talk about this morning are some of our successes. Of course, we haven't had any failures. And the first thing I'm going to talk about is this BevQ, or this water and beverage questionnaire instrument that was developed by mostly the faculty in human nutrition, food, and exercise, Brenda Davey, Paul Esterbrook, and Elena Serrano. And I have one for you, and you're all welcome to fill it out. And since we do, in engineering we would call it human factors, but in other disciplines, it's human involvement. We're key to get people doing things. What's interesting about this questionnaire is that this is the first questionnaire that has been developed as a tool that can be used to assess beverage consumption. And while that might be, you might think about it as small, a lot of, we now know from listening to NPR and other news sources, a lot of the calories people take in are from beverages. And unfortunately, historically, many of you might know about the USDA. They have this NHANES, or the National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey, where they survey Americans every year on what they eat and drink. Water's not even on the categories. We don't really have any data for human consumption of water. This questionnaire has been published. It's been translated into Spanish. It is being used across the world. I've implemented it in my research in civil engineering, so it's really taken off as a tool that came out of Virginia Tech and ICTAS funding that has gone viral. And it really did fill a niche that needed to be filled. So Brenda has, if you fill it out, we'll collect the surveys. They have a scanner. It puts it into Excel, and she'll give you back, in the near future, or her students will, an assessment of how many calories you intake from beverages. And maybe you want to shift your patterns. Okay, so that was human health. All right, so first research group I talked about was human health. The next group has to do with advancing food and water quality. So here we get into a lot of the science and engineering and traditional chemistry and microbiology measurements that we're all known for. And we've done a whole host of projects. I'm going to mention 4 of them. One is we looked at iron-containing water and how this had an impact on human sensory. And the reason why we looked at iron is because metallic is one of the major complaints worldwide for drinking water at the tap, but it's also a major complaint for people our medications or chemotherapy and radiation. We had a collaboration with Wake Forest University where we worked with cancer patients to try to assess quality of life issues related to taste and odor. And so one of the key things, some of the key findings, we were able to identify what actually happens is metals enter the mouth, they oxidize the lipids. This is like rancid butter. This has been known in food science for decades, but now we know, we've shown that it happens in the mouth, and you get this whole host of volatile compounds that smell metallic. And I have some of these. One of the ones that we identified. You are free to snip this, and it's actually a commercial food additive, so it's, you're eating it. And I'll poll you at the end to see, write down what you think it smells like. And I'll tell you what the experts said. So that's been a piece of research. We also have moved into this important area of what's called the water-air interface. We think of ourselves as drinking water, but we inhale a lot of it when we're in the shower or the swimming pool. And also vaporizers put out a lot of, they're designed to put out water. And when you put out water, you not only get water vapor, but you get whatever other chemicals are in that tap water. And so we're looking at what metals get emitted to air from drinking water, and is that a problem for human health? So we have a project there. And then, Amy and Mark and Joe Falkingham have led this effort to look at bacteria that grow in distribution systems. We've heard about premise plumbing this morning and how, in green buildings, the plumbing systems are differing, the water use is differing, and we're getting a lot of bacteria that are growing that didn't used to be there, and some of them are pathogens and can severely impact human health. And then the last bullet there about, for many contaminants, microbiological and chemical, transformation in the consumer home is what really controls the risk of public health. And this is out of the risk assessment work that our colleague Dan Gallagher has done, largely with food. And what really impacts consumers is what you do in your home. How long do you store those hot dogs in the refrigerator? And do you eat them cold or do you cook them? A lot of what happens in the regulatory arena when things leave the plant, we have high quality consumer products that can really degrade depending on how individual consumers choose to use them. And so that's a really big issue that's kind of under-addressed in society, but something that was touched on this morning. So back to the human health arena. In terms of improving human health, we would like, this group, Water for Health, we would like people to drink more drinking water. And we're trying to find out why people drink water or don't drink water. And we're also trying to get into the engineering practice. Desalinization and remineralization are taking off, And the U.S. is still minor, but globally, the World Health Organization estimates 1% of the water drank worldwide right now is desalinated. And they expect in the next 20 years for that to grow to at least 10% and likely 15%. So it's on the rise. And when you desalinate water, you take out everything, and so you pretty much have pure distilled water. And you have to add back minerals for corrosion control and water stability. You have that pH buffering. And there's a need to add back, minerals that taste good to people. One of the major complaints when I talk to people from the Middle East is, oh, nobody drinks that water. It doesn't taste good. And so here we get the most expensive water in the world, and we're flushing it down the toilets and the tap, and nobody wants to drink it. And so getting that aspect of aesthetics into desalinated water is really important. Probably the leaders in this are Barcelona, and I work with the utilities there. So that's going to be really, that is important now, and it's a little bit related to what Tony talked about. It's salinity. How much salinity do people want to drink? And part of what we're doing is looking at the human emotions, and this is being done through food science and Sue Duncan's group, looking at how people respond to water. Not just what they say verbally, but what does their facial expression say? What are they really thinking? Can we interpret that? We have worked with, as I mentioned before, Wake Forest and looking at patients that are on chemotherapy and radiation for their brain tumors, and we find that they have an increase in sensory, taste, and odor perception problems that can or cannot go away over time, and we think it's largely related to the radiation dose. And we're working to limit some of these metallic problems by looking at proteins. There are proteins in our saliva, also in milk, that are harvested and sold that can mitigate metallic flavor. So we're getting into proteomics. Okay. So that's the technical side. I'm going to skip this one and come back to it. But I like the quad chart. Like many of the quad charts you've seen, we have a lot of data on ours. I've gotten through the highlights of the technical. I will like to say that we have 13 publications, 8 of which have been published, 5 of which are in review. So we've been really active getting our data out there, not only to the scientific community, but many of us had written things to technical trade journals and had interviews on radio and not TV, but newspapers to get the word out about water and health. We've been able to support 5 PhDs, 2 master's students, and 1 undergraduate. We've highly leveraged our $300K investment from ICTAS, and totally we have almost $3 million of funded projects that have come out of it, and they're very, very diverse. They're USDA, NSF, private foundations. So we feel we've been really beneficial in getting an investment from ICTAS and then taking it further. So where are we going to go next? So I've got this little diagram down here. We're really interested in the whole water cycle, but what's really key is we want people involved. And so right now what we have a $1 million investment from as IGIP, one of the Virginia Tech graduate school investments. We were one of the first groups to be funded. So our research group will continue to work together. We have a variety of grants as individuals or teams that are out to different agencies. And I will say that we've been impacted by, like the rest of society, the sequester and the lack of success in Washington. We were selected last year to be the group that went forward for an IGER proposal to NSF. They're supposed to decide in December, and they said they'd let us know in January. The good news is in January, a lot of schools learned that they weren't getting funding, and we weren't one of those, so we're very hopeful that we'll get that $3.5 million investment. So with that, I'm going to close, and if anybody has any questions, and I'd like to thank ICTAS for supporting us. It's been a really good ride, and it isn't over.